Three Atlas AIs are about to emerge from behind the sun, and Harvard scientists have just calculated something alarming. From November 21 to December 5, there exists a time frame in which, if conspiracy theories are true, everything will change. But here is what no one talks about. While everyone focuses on the Tri-Eye Atlas, scientists have just managed to reverse aging in mice, increasing their lifespan by 30%. In France, plasma synthesis was maintained at star temperatures for 22 minutes. NASA confirmed the existence of a sixth thousand planet, and the Pentagon recorded 66 UFO sightings in New York this year that they cannot explain. Tonight, for the first time on this channel, we will discuss all of this. 10 sensational scientific news stories that could change our future, not just the space guest that everyone is paying attention to. This is your complete overview of scientific news for October 25. Before delving into what is truly happening with Tri-Eye Atlas and other world-changing discoveries, if you enjoy this new format covering multiple revolutionary stories instead of just one, please like and subscribe. Write in the comments where you are listening from, what time it is for you, and whether you prefer these episodes or our usual format with a single theme. If you want to help our community grow, share this on social media. Thank you for always supporting us. The first news, a conspiracy about a cosmic guest. Imagine for a moment, October 10th, 2025, and somewhere between Mars and Earth, a massive object rushes through our solar system at speeds that shouldn't be possible for something so large. The Three-Eye Atlas, officially designated as the third interstellar object ever discovered, enters our cosmic vicinity, becoming the center of a dispute splitting the scientific community in half. While NASA insists it's just a comet, a growing number of researchers led by Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb suggest that we may be witnessing something much more unusual. The story begins on July 1st, 2025, when a telescope from the Asteroid Collision Warning System in Chile detected something unusual. At first, it seemed just another space rock, but as astronomers calculated its trajectory, they realized this guest came from beyond our solar system, from the depths of interstellar space. What makes Three-Eye Atlas particularly fascinating is the incredible series of coincidences surrounding his journey through our solar system. According to calculations published by Loeb's team at Harvard, the probability that the Tri-Eye Atlas will naturally align with the orbital planes of Venus, Mars, and Jupiter is about 0.2%. Think about this for a moment. Of all the possible trajectories that an interstellar object can take in our solar system, this one shows the path that brings it closer to our main planets. Imagine throwing a dart with your eyes closed from another city and hitting not just the center of the target, but doing so while the target is spinning. The situation becomes more complicated when time is involved. The Swan warns that by the end of October, the 31st Atlas will be behind the sun, entering the so-called strategic blind zone. For several critically important weeks, our ability to observe the object will be severely limited. If, and this is particularly interesting, the 31st Atlas turns out to be some form of alien technology, it will be the perfect time to deploy probes or conduct operations undetected from Earth. The period from November 21st to December 5th becomes particularly important in Loeb's calculations, as it is during this time that any theoretical deployments can take optimal positions relative to the Earth. Before dismissing this as science fiction, it is worth noting the evidence that even makes skeptics ponder. The mass of the object, estimated at over 33 billion tons, makes it extremely massive for a typical comet. His acceleration patterns do not quite match what one would expect from simple sublimation, the process by which frozen materials evaporate as the comet approaches the sun. The most mysterious thing is that when the Hubble telescope captured images of the 31st Atlas, it revealed something unexpected, a tear-shaped cloud of dust that seemed to precede the object, rather than follow it, as is usually the case with comet tails. This is not the first time we have such discussions. Remember Oumuamua, the cigar-shaped object that flew by in 2017. This visitor showed acceleration without visible sublimation, sparking years of scientific publications and heated debates. Then in the year 2019, Borisov appeared, looking and behaving more like an ordinary comet. But the 31st Atlas, this third visitor, combines elements of both mysteries, adding new puzzles. Recent observations from Mars orbiters added another layer of mystery. On October 3rd, 2025, when the 31st Atlas passed 30 million kilometers from Mars, Both the European Space Agency's Mars Express and the ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter detected something intriguing. The images show that the object is surrounded by an asymmetric halo with density variations that do not correspond to typical comet behavior. Some researchers studying these images claim to see evidence of structured patterns within the dust cloud, while others insist it is just artifacts of image processing. What truly excites the scientific community is the composition of the object. Analysis using the James Webb Telescope revealed an unprecedented ratio of carbon dioxide to water ice of 8:1, one of the highest ever recorded for any comet, interstellar or otherwise. This unusual chemistry suggests that the 31st Atlas formed under conditions radically different from everything we know about our solar system. Some scientists argue that this confirms a natural origin from a distant, chemically exotic star system. Some, including members of Lyob's team, suggest that this unusual shape may indicate an artificial structure designed to mimic natural objects while maintaining structural integrity during interstellar travel. The debates on this topic became so tense that the SETI Institute felt the need to publish an article directly addressing the hypothesis of an extraterrestrial spacecraft. In their analysis, acknowledging the unusual characteristics of the objects, scientists point out that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. They note that the object's behavior, although unusual, still falls within the realm of what exotic natural phenomena can produce. Nevertheless, even in the SETI article, it is acknowledged that some aspects of the 30th Atlas still provoke genuine bewilderment. At present, the 30th Atlas continues its journey through the inner part of our solar system, currently hidden by sunlight. When he appears in early November, all the largest telescopes on Earth and in space will be aimed at him. The following weeks may provide answers to the question of whether we are witnessing a remarkable yet natural cosmic coincidence or something that will change our understanding of our place in the universe. The fact that even conservative scientists keep an open mind speaks to how unusual this situation has become. Consider for a moment its consequences. If the 30th Atlas is artificial, it means that somewhere in our galaxy, possibly from that mysterious and dense area of the Milky Way where scientists believe it originated, there exists a civilization capable of launching objects over interstellar distances. Trajectory calculations show that this object traveled for millions, possibly billions of years. What patience and planning would that require? And perhaps the most disturbing question, what would be the purpose of such a mission arriving in our solar system at this moment in human history, when we finally have the technology to detect and study it? Chapter 2. Urgent news about the 30th Atlas. Latest scientific reports. While conspiracy theories swirl around the 30th Atlas, hard data from several space agencies paints an equally intriguing, though perhaps less sensational, picture. This week, new observations from spacecraft orbiting Mars provided our clearest view of this mysterious visitor. What they reveal challenges both the hypothesis of extraterrestrial origin and our understanding of natural phenomena. The latest images from the European Space Agency, captured by their ExoMars orbital probe launched on October 3rd, show the 30th Atlas as a blurred white spot moving against a backdrop of stars. This may not seem impressive, but keep in mind that the cameras that took these shots were designed to photograph the surface of Mars from a distance of just a few hundred kilometers. Capturing a relatively dim object 30 million kilometers away required these instruments to be pushed to their limits. Nick Thomas, the lead researcher of the Cassius camera system, described his work as an attempt to photograph a firefly using a telescope designed for studying mountains. The timing adds special value to these observations. As the comet Tri and Atlas approached Mars, it entered an active phase where solar heat began to affect its frozen surface, causing a stunning transformation that turned the cold, dead rock into a glowing cosmic marvel. Data shows that the coma of this object, a glowing cloud of gas and dust, extends significantly further than the initial models predicted. It is about a cloud of material that could overshadow most mountains on Earth, spreading in patterns that seem to pulse and change with an almost rhythmic quality. NASA combined data from at least 14 different instruments on 8 spacecraft monitoring Tri and Atlas. The consensus emerging from this unprecedented observation campaign reveals an object that is difficult to classify simply. Yes, it exhibits typical comet behavior in many ways: gas emission, tail development, and spectroscopic signatures of common cometary molecules, but it also does things we have never observed before. For example, The brightness speed of Tri-I and Atlas when approaching the Sun does not conform to the standard curve. Most comets predictably brighten as they heat up, following well-understood mathematical relationships. 3 and Atlas show sharp brightness jumps, almost as if something is turning on and off. Skeptics of the extraterrestrial origin hypothesis suggest that this could be explained by uneven surface composition, pockets of highly volatile substances that sublimate sharply under sunlight. But even they admit that they have never seen anything like it. The chemical analysis became even more intriguing with new data. In addition to the remarkable ratio of carbon dioxide to water of 8:1, spectrometers detected traces of complex organic molecules that should not have survived in interstellar space for the millions of years that this object is believed to have traveled. These molecules, similar to those found in the most primitive meteorites of our solar system, may indicate that Tri-I and Atlas are older than the Sun itself. We are potentially dealing with a time capsule from the early days of our galaxy, preserved in the deep cold of interstellar space. Recent radar observations from the Arecibo Observatory before its tragic destruction managed to reflect signals from Tri-I Atlas while it was still in the outer solar system. The returning signal indicates the presence of a core, a solid center beneath the gas dust shell, which turns out to be surprisingly large and smooth. Most comet cores are shaped like ordinary potatoes. The Atlas looks almost spherical, with a reflective structure that some researchers describe as too perfect to be natural. Of course, others claim that we simply haven't observed interstellar comets enough to know what a natural object of this kind looks like. Thus, the November timeline that excited conspiracy theorists coincides with several significant scientific events. The European Space Agency's Jupiter IC, or JUICE, will attempt to observe the object 31 Atlas right after its closest approach to the Sun. This is important because JUICE is equipped with tools specifically designed to analyze the chemical composition of icy bodies. If 31 Atlases are about to reveal their secrets, this may be our best chance to learn them. Meanwhile, ground observatories are preparing for what they call the observation window of the century. When 31 Atlases appear from behind the Sun in early November, they will be perfectly positioned for observation from the southern hemisphere. A very large telescope in Chile, the most powerful optical telescope on Earth, has cleared its schedule for continuous monitoring. They plan to use a technique called interferometry, combining light from several telescopes to achieve a resolution that could theoretically reveal features just a few meters in size on the surface of a comet, if conditions are right. The scientific community is also closely monitoring what is not happening. If 31 Atlas is indeed just a natural comet, albeit an unusual one, it should begin to predictably fade after perihelion, its closest approach to the Sun. Its trajectory must remain stable, following the laws of orbital mechanics without any unexplained course corrections. Any deviation from these predictions would elevate this event from an interesting astronomical fact to something potentially revolutionary. One aspect that has not received much attention outside scientific circles is the rotation of the object. 31 Atlas appears to rotate along a complex trajectory, indicating that it experiences forces beyond simple solar pressure. Some scientists suggest that this may be related to asymmetric ejection, where jets of steam are expelled unevenly, causing the object to rotate. However, the rotation pattern exhibits periodicity that seems almost artificial in its precision. It rotates around 3 axes simultaneously, creating a pattern that repeats every 17.5 hours, which is quite specific for a supposed random celestial body. The latest models from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory suggest that 31 Atlas passing through our solar system is not as unlikely as previously thought. Considering the gravitational disturbances from galactic tides over millions of years, the likelihood of an interstellar object following this specific trajectory increases from 0.2% to about 1.8%. It is still unlikely, but not impossible. However, this model reveals something even more interesting. The object seems to have undergone a slight course correction over the last few thousand years before entering our solar system. A natural explanation, a close encounter with an invisible massive object. An alternative explanation? This is where imagination takes flight. The sheer number of anomalies keeps even skeptical scientists intrigued. Each individual peculiarity can be explained, but the Object 3I Atlas represents a constellation of mysteries. It is too massive, too smooth, too precisely rotating, too chemically exotic, and moves along too convenient a trajectory. As one researcher noted in an informal conversation, if you were trying to create an object that made scientists doubt everything while maintaining the plausibility of its natural origin, you couldn't come up with anything better than the 3-Eye Atlas. The next few weeks will be crucial, as 3 comets will orbit the sun and begin their outgoing paths, giving us the best chance to unravel these mysteries. Every major space agency has aimed its instruments at this cosmic visitor. If he is going to surprise us, if there is any truth in more exotic theories, we will soon find out. The universe rarely gives us such clear deadlines for discovery, but with 3-Eye and Atlas, we have this deadline, from November 21st to December 5th. This is the window when everything can change. Chapter 3: Space and Astronomy, 6,000 Exoplanets, and More. While Atlas continues its mysterious journey through our solar system, another cosmic achievement quietly revolutionized our understanding of the universe. Last month, NASA confirmed that humanity has discovered 6,000 planets orbiting other stars. 6,000 worlds, each potentially as complex and diverse as our solar system. And this announcement contains a detail that should make everyone think. At least 47 of these planets are in the so-called habitable zone, where liquid water could exist on their surfaces. The 6,000th planet itself was not particularly remarkable. A hot, Jupiter-like world orbiting a star 400 light-years away. But what it represents is staggering. 30 years ago, we knew of no planets beyond our solar system. The first confirmed exoplanet around a sun-like star, Pegasi b, was discovered in 1995. Now we find them so quickly that individual discoveries hardly make the news unless they are particularly strange, and some of them are truly astonishingly strange. For example, WASP-76b is a planet where it literally rains liquid iron. The sunny side of this tide-claimed world reaches temperatures of 4,300 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to vaporize metal. Iron vapor is carried by winds at 1,000 miles an hour to the cooler night side, where it condenses and falls as metallic rain. Or consider 2I 5205b, discovered only this year, a planet covered in oceans of lava with clouds that may consist of vaporized rock. These places are no longer concepts of science fiction, but real worlds existing right now, revolving around distant stars in our galaxy. But truly exciting events happen on smaller rocky planets that may actually support life. The testing mission, a transit survey satellite for exoplanets, especially successfully finds these Earth-sized worlds. Unlike the Kepler mission, which observed one area of the sky for many years, the TESS telescope scans almost the entire sky, focusing on stars closer to Earth. This means that the planets he discovers are much easier to study during subsequent observations. Last week, researchers announced the discovery of planet LP89b, a super-Earth located just 22 light-years away from us. It is astonishing not only because of its size, which is about 1.5 times the radius of Earth, but also because it orbits in the habitable zone around a red dwarf. Red dwarfs make up 75% of all stars in our galaxy, so if planets around these stars can support life, the universe could be overflowing with it. The James Webb Space Telescope has begun analyzing the atmosphere of this planet in search of biosignatures, chemical traces of life. Speaking of the Webb telescope, it has completely changed our ability to study the atmospheres of exoplanets. He discovers molecules that we never thought we could see from Earth. Water vapor, methane, carbon dioxide, even clouds and nebulae. On planet K218b, which has a mass 8.5 times that of Earth, Webb discovered something unusual: dimethyl sulfide, a molecule produced on Earth only by living organisms, particularly marine phytoplankton. Before you get too excited, it's worth noting that there may be non-biological ways to produce this molecule that we do not yet know about, but this is exactly the kind of discovery that makes scientists' hearts race. The diversity of planetary systems we are discovering forces us to completely rethink our theories about planet formation. We have found hot Jupiters, massive gas giants orbiting closer to their stars than Mercury does to our sun. We found super-Earths and mini-Neptunes, entire categories of planets that do not exist in our solar system. We discovered planets orbiting binary stars like the fictional Tatooine from Star Wars. We even found wandering planets, worlds that do not orbit any star, but wander in the darkness of interstellar space. One of the most intriguing recent discoveries is the TRAPPIST-I system, where 7 Earth-sized planets orbit a single star, just 39 light-years away from us. 3 of these planets are in the habitable zone and are positioned so close to each other that if you stood on one of them, the others would appear larger than our moon. The entire system could fit within Mercury's orbit, but it may contain 3 potentially habitable worlds. Imagine the consequences of life existing on multiple planets within one system. Would they develop independently, or would meteorite impacts facilitate the spread of life between them in a process known as panspermia? The search is no longer just about finding any planets, but about finding suitable ones. The Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, planned for launch in 2027, will conduct a census of exoplanets using a technique called gravitational microlensing. This method can detect planets that evade the attention of other techniques, including Earth-mass planets orbiting at distances comparable to that from Earth to the Sun. It is expected that Roman will find thousands of new exoplanets, among which there may be nearly complete analogs of Earth. But this is where it gets really interesting. Statistical analysis of already discovered planets shows that Earth-sized planets and habitable zones are not rare at all. In fact, they can be quite common. Conservative estimates suggest there are at least 300 million potentially habitable planets just in our galaxy. Some researchers propose that this number could exceed 1 billion, and this is only in the Milky Way. In the observable universe, there are 2 trillion galaxies. If counted, the number of potentially habitable worlds becomes almost incomprehensible. However, despite these overwhelming numbers, we have found no convincing signs of life. This is the essence of the Fermi paradox. If life is widespread, where is everyone? Some scientists argue that we are searching in the wrong places or using incorrect methods. Others suggest that life may be common, but intelligent life could be extremely rare. Or perhaps this brings us back to the Tri-Eye Atlas project. They are already here, and we are just beginning to recognize signs of their presence. The events related to these discoveries seem significant, especially as we develop technologies to detect and explore other worlds and realize how common potentially habitable planets are. We received our 3rd interstellar visitor in just 8 years. Is this a coincidence? Or is there something in reaching such a level of technological maturity that attracts attention? Some researchers suggested that our radio emissions, which have leaked into space for over 100 years, could serve as a beacon. The Earth could appear as an unusually bright radio planet to any civilization with sufficiently advanced detection means. The next decade promises even more revolutionary discoveries. The Observatory for Habitable Worlds, still in the planning stage, will be specifically designed to directly image Earth-like exoplanets and analyze their atmospheres for signs of life. A European extremely large telescope currently being built in Chile will have the resolution to potentially see continents on nearby exoplanets. We will truly be able to create maps of extraterrestrial worlds, see their oceans and land, and perhaps even discover the lights of alien cities, if they exist. Think about this possibility for a moment. During your lifetime, we may not only learn that life exists somewhere else, but also see it, observe alien weather conditions, and track seasonal changes on distant worlds. The 6,000 planets we have discovered so far are just the beginning. Conservative estimates suggest that there are at least 100 billion planets in our galaxy. We have explored only 0.006% of them. This is like judging all the diversity of life on Earth by studying a single drop of ocean water. What wonders are still waiting to be discovered? What impossible worlds revolve around distant stars? And perhaps the most intriguing question is how many of them have someone looking at us, wondering if they are alone. 2025 will be remembered as the year when quantum computing ceased to be just a promise and became a reality. The United Nations intentionally declared this year the International Year of Quantum Science and Technology. This decision was made because we are at a turning point. This week, the Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to 3 pioneers of quantum computing. And if you think this is just academic recognition, think again. The quantum computing market is expected to reach $450 billion by the year 2040. Google, IBM, Microsoft, and dozens of startups are racing, making the original space race seem like a stroll. Let me describe what happened in the field of quantum computing, which attracted the attention of everyone from Wall Street to the Pentagon. Scientists from Kyoto University have finally solved a problem that has plagued quantum computing for 25 years. They managed to identify and measure the so-called W state of quantum entanglement. This may sound like technical jargon, but imagine trying to build a classical computer without understanding how electricity flows through circuits. This is exactly what we have been doing with quantum computers until now. This breakthrough is akin to a sudden understanding of the fundamental language spoken by quantum computers. Quantum computers operate on principles that sound like magic but are, in fact, fundamental properties of the universe. While your laptop processes information using bits that can be 0 or 1, quantum computers use quantum bits or qubits that can be 0, 1, or both at the same time. This is called superposition and allows quantum computers to explore millions of possibilities simultaneously. Imagine needing to find one specific grain of sand on the beach. A classical computer would have to check each grain one by one. The quantum computer can essentially check everything instantly. But this is where 2025 became special. IBM just announced that they have managed to achieve an error level below the critical threshold necessary for practical quantum computing. For many years, the main problem with quantum computers has been that qubits are incredibly fragile. The slightest vibration, the smallest change in temperature, even a random cosmic ray can cause errors. Our new IBM system uses so-called quantum error correction to fix these errors faster than they occur. It feels like trying to write while someone constantly shakes your hand, but now you have a way to automatically correct mistakes before they ruin your work. Real applications are starting to emerge. Goldman Sachs uses quantum algorithms to optimize trading strategies, potentially saving billions in transaction costs. A startup called Quantum Computing Inc. signed a contract with NASA for the use of quantum computers to filter solar noise from satellite data. This could revolutionize our understanding of climate change and weather patterns from space. But perhaps the most astonishing thing is that researchers from MIT used a quantum computer to model a molecule that classical computers had unsuccessfully worked on for decades. This molecule could play a key role in the development of room temperature superconductors, materials that conduct electricity without resistance, and could transform areas like energy grids and transportation. Amazon Web Services introduced a chip called Ocelot, which reduces the costs of quantum error correction by 90%. Consider this. With one breakthrough event, they made quantum computing 10 times more accessible. This chip uses so-called cat qubits, named after the famous thought experiment of Schrödinger. These qubits are naturally more resistant to certain types of errors, similar to an autocorrect for quantum information. Meanwhile, Rigetti computing achieved an accuracy of 99.5% for 2-qubit gates. In human terms, this means their quantum computer can perform operations with an error of less than 0.5%. In comparison, early quantum computers had error rates above 10%. This is like moving from a car that breaks down every 10 miles to one that can travel across the country without issues. Rigetti connects several 9-qubit chips together, creating machines with over 100 qubits. At this level, quantum computers begin to surpass classical ones in certain tasks with a margin that is simply unimaginable. The implications for artificial intelligence are impressive. Quantum machine learning algorithms can find patterns in data that classical computers would take millions of years to discover. Imagine an AI that can predict disease outbreaks months in advance, develop new materials atom by atom, or solve climate models with perfect accuracy. We have not yet reached this, but the path is becoming clear. The Consortium for the Development of Quantum Economics has just published a report showing that the combination of quantum computing and AI could revolutionize industries like healthcare and logistics within the next decade. But let's talk about an important issue: cryptography. Most of our internet security is based on mathematical problems that would take classical computers thousands of years to solve. Quantum computers can crack these codes in just a few hours. A race has begun to develop quantum-resistant encryption before quantum computers become powerful enough to break current protections. The US government is so concerned that it is transitioning to new encryption standards. Your bank, your email, your medical records, everything currently protected by encryption methods could potentially be vulnerable to a powerful quantum computer. This is where the situation becomes interesting from a geopolitical perspective. China invested $15 billion in quantum computing research, claiming to have achieved quantum supremacy with their Shuchongzai processor, which they say completed a computation in minutes that would take classical computers billions of years. In response, the United States passed a bill aimed at accelerating research in quantum technologies and preventing their export to rival countries. We have effectively entered a quantum arms race, and the winner may gain overwhelming technological advantage. Private companies are pushing boundaries in unexpected directions. A startup called Psych Quantum is developing a quantum computer that uses photons, particles of light, instead of traditional qubits. Their approach may solve one of the main problems of quantum computing, the need to maintain temperatures close to absolute zero. Photons naturally resist coherence, a process that destroys quantum information, and can function at room temperature. If successfully implemented, quantum computers could become as commonplace as traditional computers within a decade. The timeline for achieving practical quantum computing continues to shorten. In 2015, experts predicted that it would take 50 years to create useful quantum computers. By 2020, this time frame had reduced to 20 years. Now, in the year 2025, companies promise commercial quantum advantages within 5 years. IBM's roadmap shows systems with over 4,000 qubits by 2027. At this level, quantum computers can revolutionize the drug discovery process, finding new medications in months instead of decades. Think about what this could mean for longevity research, which we will discuss later. Quantum computers will be able to model the aging process at the molecular level, accurately determining why cells degrade and how to prevent it. They can develop proteins capable of repairing DNA damage or predicting how various genetic modifications will affect lifespan. The intersection of quantum computing and biotechnology may hold the key to unraveling the very process of aging. The deepest consequence of this may concern our understanding of reality itself. Quantum computers work because quantum mechanics is real, not just a mathematical abstraction. Each successful quantum computation confirms that particles can indeed exist in multiple states simultaneously. What entanglement allows us to instantly correlate events at any distance, and that the universe operates on principles that contradict our everyday intuition. In creating more powerful quantum computers, we are not just developing tools or exploring the fundamental nature of existence. This is what keeps physicists awake at night. If quantum computers can model any physical system, and if the universe itself operates on quantum principles, then sufficiently powerful quantum computers can simulate entire universes. We may be approaching the technological ability to create simulated realities indistinguishable from our own. And if this is possible, how can we be sure we are not already living in one of them? The quantum revolution is not only about faster computers, but also questions that challenge our understanding of the very essence of existence. Chapter 5. Physics and Energy. A breakthrough in nuclear fusion. In February of this year, something unusual happened in a French laboratory that hardly made headlines outside the scientific community. The West Tokamak reactor maintained plasma at a temperature of 50 million degrees Celsius for 1,337 seconds, 22 minutes, and 17 seconds of stable conditions for nuclear fusion. To understand better, this is 3 times hotter than the center of our sun, where the temperature is only 15 million degrees. We created conditions that exceed the temperature of a star by 3 times and maintained them steadily for almost half an hour. If this doesn't give you goosebumps, perhaps you don't fully realize what has happened. We are not talking about the distant future. Private companies in the field of nuclear fusion are betting billions that they will achieve commercial synthesis within this decade. The Commonwealth Fusion Systems Company has raised over $2 billion and plans to connect power to the electric grid by the early 30s. They are so confident in their success that they have already signed an agreement with Dominion Energy to build a prototype power plant in Virginia. This is not just speculation of venture capital. It's a major energy company preparing to utilize nuclear fusion. The secret source that changed everything is high-temperature superconducting magnets. These magnets can create fields so strong that they can lift a car across the entire parking lot, even though they are made of a ceramic material coated on a steel strip. Commonwealth Fusion Systems found a way to coil this tape into spools capable of holding plasma at temperatures of 100 million degrees, something that seemed impossible just 5 years ago. Their spark reactor, currently under construction, will be the first fusion device designed from scratch to produce clean energy. But let me tell you about the real breakthrough that happened this year. Scientists from the University of Texas have finally solved a mystery they worked on for 70 years regarding particle confinement in nuclear fusion reactors. They found a way to predict and prevent particle leaks using symmetry theory instead of brute force calculations. It's like finding a secret passage in a maze you've been trying to decipher for decades. This breakthrough makes the design of thermonuclear reactors 10 times faster and could cut years off development. The competition is fierce and global. In Germany, the stellarator Wendelstein 7X has just proven that it can match the performance of much larger tokamaks. A stellarator is like a tokamak twisted into a pretzel, and although they are more complex to build, they can operate continuously rather than in pulses. The German team achieved the so-called triple product, measures of temperature, density, and particle confinement time, placing them on par with the best tokamaks in the world. They did this with a reactor that resembles modern art more than a machine. Meanwhile, at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, the National Ignition Facility continues to set its own records using a completely different approach by directing 192 laser beams at a tiny fuel pellet for nuclear fusion. In December of last year, they achieved ignition, receiving more energy from the synthesis than was delivered by the lasers to the target. They repeated this success several times, with one shot producing 3.15 megajoules while consuming only 2.5 megajoules of laser energy. It feels like lighting a match and turning it into a bonfire. But this is where things get really interesting. A company called Helion uses a completely different approach. Instead of trying to contain superheated plasma in magnetic fields or compressing pellets with lasers, they accelerate two plasma rings towards each other at a speed of 1,000,000 miles per hour. When they collide, it creates conditions for synthesis for a fraction of a second, but that's enough. They claim they can directly extract energy in the form of electricity without the need for steam turbines. If this works, nuclear fusion power plants could become as simple as solar farms. The implications go far beyond clean energy. Fusion reactors produce helium-3, an isotope so rare on Earth that its cost is $30,000 per liter. Helium-3 could open a new era of quantum computers, medical imaging, and even thermonuclear rockets for deep space exploration. A nuclear fusion power plant could produce enough helium-3 to meet the entire current global demand while generating electricity, like discovering your car can produce gold as a byproduct. Private investments in nuclear fusion are growing at an unprecedented rate. Over $7 billion have been invested in startups in the field of nuclear fusion, with companies like TIE Technologies, General Fusion, and First Light Fusion claiming they will achieve commercial nuclear fusion by 2035. These are not naive dreamers. Their teams include former SpaceX engineers, Nobel laureates, and veterans of the semiconductor industry. They apply silicon-based iteration speed to a problem that government laboratories have been working on for 70 years. This race has geopolitical consequences that overshadow even quantum computing. China is building a thermonuclear reactor called Vostok, which recently held plasma for 1,066 seconds. They plan to launch a demonstration power plant by the year 2035. The European Union is building ITER, the largest nuclear fusion reactor ever constructed, although it faces delays and budget overruns. Japan reached temperatures of 360 million degrees in its JT60SA reactor. Every major power realizes that whoever masters nuclear fusion first will gain virtually unlimited sources of clean energy. Consider what unlimited clean energy means. We could desalinate seawater for irrigating deserts. We could extract carbon dioxide directly from the atmosphere and turn it back into fuel. We could supply vertical farms producing food anywhere, regardless of climate. We could produce aluminum and steel without any carbon emissions. Every energy-intensive process currently relying on fossil fuels can be replaced. The entire global economy can be restructured around an abundance of clean energy. Fuel for nuclear fusion is so abundant that it's almost laughable. Deuterium can be extracted from seawater, and there is enough in the oceans to power humanity for billions of years. Tritium can be obtained from lithium, which is widely available in the Earth's crust. A fusion power plant, the size of a regular coal plant, could supply energy to a city of 1 million people using just a few kilograms of fuel per day. No extraction, no pipelines, no tankers, just water and lithium, creating the same energy that powers the stars. We also observe unexpected breakthroughs in nuclear fusion physics. Researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology discovered that adding a small amount of beryllium to the plasma can increase the fusion rate by 50%. It's like discovering that a pinch of salt can make your car engine twice as efficient. In Princeton, scientists have learned to use machine learning to predict and prevent failures, sudden losses of plasma containment that can damage reactors. Artificial intelligence can detect patterns in plasma behavior that humans have missed, preventing problems milliseconds before they arise. The timeline of events continues to accelerate. In 2010, experts claimed that commercial nuclear fusion would be available in 50 years. By 2015, they said 30 years. Now, in 2020, several companies promise demonstration power plants within the next decade. The British government is so confident that it is already selecting sites for commercial fusion power plants, expecting their launch by the year 2040. Canada has created a regulatory framework specifically for fusion energy. Infrastructure for a world powered by nuclear fusion is being built even before the technology is fully validated. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of nuclear fusion is how it can change our relationship with energy. Throughout human history, we have been limited by a lack of energy. Wars have been fought over oil, economies have collapsed due to energy crises, and billions of people still lack access to reliable electricity. Nuclear fusion could close this chapter in human history. Energy can become so abundant and cheap that we stop thinking about it, like air or sunlight. Imagine a world where energy poverty is impossible, where we can solve any problem simply by applying more clean energy. This world may only exist in 15 years. Chapter 6: Biology and Genetics: Progress in the Reverse CRISPR. Last month, something happened at Stanford University that sounds like pure science fiction. Scientists took brain cells from elderly mice, cells that had essentially stopped dividing and regenerating, and made them young again. Not just healthier, not just more active, but truly young at the molecular level. Mice showed a 30% increase in lifespan, and their cognitive functions returned to levels typical of much younger mice. If this works for people, and early tests suggest it is possible, we could add decades of healthy life to human lifespan. The tool that makes this possible is called CRISPR-Ca, the ninth version of the gene editing technology that won the Nobel Prize just a few years ago. However, it has evolved so rapidly that those early achievements now seem primitive. Imagine CRISPR as molecular scissors that can precisely cut DNA at the right spot, combined with a GPS system directing these scissors to specific genetic addresses. But what scientists achieved in the year 2025 goes far beyond simple cutting and pasting. They use CRISPR to create a symphony of genetic changes that literally reverses the aging process. The breakthrough occurred when researchers identified the SLC2A4 gene, which controls glucose transport in brain cells. With age, this gene becomes hyperactive, filling our neurons with sugar and effectively caramelizing them from within. Using CRISPR to reduce the activity of this one gene, scientists restored the youthful function of brain cells that were essentially aging. Old neurons began to divide again, forming new connections and creating fresh memories, akin to upgrading an 80s computer to modern specifications. But we are doing this with living tissues. However, brain rejuvenation is just the beginning. In George Church's laboratory at Harvard Medical School, 25 longevity genes have been identified that, when properly activated, can extend mice's lives by 50%. The scientists are not just making mice live longer, they are improving their quality of life. These genetically modified mice maintain muscle mass, bone density, and immune function even at the age when their decline is usually expected. Essentially, they age twice as slowly, and Church predicts that this technology could be ready for human trials in 5 years. The approach they are using is revolutionary. Instead of trying to fix the thousands of problems that come with age, scientists are targeting the main switches that control the aging process. One of these switches is the Yamanaka factors, 4 genes that can reprogram adult cells back to an embryonic state. The essence is to activate these factors sufficiently to rejuvenate cells without turning them into stem cells or causing cancer. It feels like rolling back the odometer on a car without disassembling it. The teams from the Sava Institute demonstrated this partial reprogramming on live animals with astonishing results. Mice with progeria, a disease causing accelerated aging, lived 30% longer when treated with periodic doses of Yamanaka factors. More importantly, their organs showed real signs of rejuvenation. Kidneys that had failed began to function again. Hearts began to work more efficiently, and even their skin became more elastic. Mice not only lived longer, they became younger. The speed of progress is impressive. Just 5 years ago, editing a single gene with high precision was considered a significant achievement. Now scientists from the University of California, Berkeley, are editing dozens of genes simultaneously, orchestrating complex genetic programs that seemed impossible back in 2020. They use new variants of CRISPR technology, such as prime editing and base editing, which allow for changing individual DNA letters without breaking the double helix. It's like moving from a sledgehammer to a surgical laser. One of the most promising directions is related to the targeted impact on aging cells, the so-called zombie cells, which accumulate with age. These cells have stopped dividing, but do not want to die, releasing inflammatory substances that damage surrounding tissues. Researchers from the Mayo Clinic developed CRISPR therapies specifically targeting the destruction of such cells. Mice receiving these senolytics showed improved kidney function, increased endurance in running, and even hair regeneration. Clinical trials have already begun for conditions such as osteoarthritis and pulmonary fibrosis. The implications for specific diseases are astonishing. Alzheimer's disease, which affects millions of people worldwide, may be preventable by editing just a few genes. Scientists have identified genetic variants that make some people almost immune to Alzheimer's disease, and CRISPR may provide everyone with these protective mutations. Similarly, genes that influence cholesterol metabolism, blood pressure regulation, and inflammation can be edited to prevent cardiovascular diseases before they occur. We are talking not only about treating diseases, but also about creating immunity to them. Private companies are rushing to commercialize these technologies. Altus Labs, backed by billions in investments, has attracted top scientists in aging to develop cell reprogramming therapies. Calico, Google's life extension company, uses artificial intelligence to identify new longevity targets for CRISPR editing. The startup Rejuvenate Bio is already testing gene therapies aimed at reversing aging on dogs, planning clinical trials on humans by 2027. However, perhaps the most intriguing discovery is that aging may not be as inevitable as we thought. Researchers studying supercentenarians, people living over 110 years, have found that many possess unique genetic variants that seem to slow down or even reverse certain aspects of aging. A woman in France lived to be 122 years old, with the cardiovascular system of a 60-year-old. CRISPR could potentially provide everyone with these superhuman longevity genes. The ethical implications of this discovery are profound and require urgent attention. If we can extend human life by decades or even centuries, who will have access to such treatments? How will society function if people start regularly living to 150 years? What will happen to concepts like retirement, inheritance, or even marriage if death becomes a distant prospect rather than an inevitable reality? These questions are no longer hypothetical. They are challenges we must address in the coming decade. Some researchers go further, suggesting that aging itself should be classified as a disease. Claire Davidson from Harvard argues that aging is not a natural process, but a disorder that can be treated and healed. In her laboratory, it was demonstrated that information about youth still exists in old cells. It just needs to be activated. Using a combination of CRISPR technology and chemical compounds, they restored vision in blind mice and returned mobility to mice with damaged optic nerves. The fusion of CRISPR technology with other scientific fields accelerates all processes. Artificial intelligence can now predict with astonishing accuracy how genetic changes will affect lifespan. Quantum computers can model the aging process at the molecular level, revealing intervention points we were not even aware of. Nanotechnology can deliver CRISPR components directly into specific cells, editing our genome from within. We are approaching what some scientists call the escape velocity of aging, the moment when we can extend life faster than we age. If we can add more than 1 year to the expected lifespan for every year that passes, death will become optional rather than inevitable. It may seem fantastic, but consider this. The expected human lifespan has doubled in the last 200 years. The main difference now is that we are not just treating symptoms or preventing diseases. We are hacking the very code of life. The first person to live to 150 years old may already be among us. They might be listening to this right now. The question is not whether we can conquer aging, but whether we are ready for a world where this is possible. Because undoubtedly, the ability to edit our own genes, reverse aging at will, and essentially become different versions of ourselves is a transformation of human nature as profound as the development of language or the discovery of fire. We are on the verge of controlling our own evolution, and the decisions we make in the coming years will echo for centuries, perhaps even millennia. In Switzerland, a paralyzed man has just typed a message using the power of thought at a speed of 90 characters per minute, almost as fast as you type on your phone. Another patient controlled a robotic arm with such precision that he was able to lift a coffee cup and drink from it, something she had been unable to do with her own hands for 15 years. This is not a story from a distant future. It is happening right now in the year 2025. And this is just the beginning of a revolution that will fundamentally change our understanding of humanity. The company Precision Neuroscience, founded by former Neuralink employees, has just published the results of its first clinical trials, sparking a storm of discussion in the scientific community. Their cortical interface of the seventh layer is a film thinner than a human hair, located on the surface of the brain, reading electrical signals from thousands of neurons simultaneously. Unlike other brain implants that require drilling into the skull, this device can be inserted through a gap smaller than a grain of rice. The entire procedure takes less than 20 minutes, and the implant can be removed just as easily. The uniqueness of this breakthrough lies not only in the technology, but also in what it revealed about consciousness itself. When researchers began analyzing brain signals obtained from these implants, they discovered something that challenges everything we knew about how consciousness works. The brain does not generate consciousness like a computer performs calculations. Instead, consciousness seems to arise from the interaction between the brain and the body, especially due to something called interception, our awareness of the body's internal signals. Consider this: your sense of self, your consciousness, may not originate from the brain. A new study from the University of Sussex shows that conscious experience begins with how the brain interprets signals from your heart, stomach, breathing, and even skin temperature. The brain constantly predicts what these signals should be, and when reality does not match the prediction, consciousness emerges from this discrepancy. It is as if consciousness is a mechanism for correcting the errors of existence. This discovery is already changing the approach to treating consciousness disorders. Patients in a vegetative state showing no signs of awareness were connected to brain-computer interfaces, and something amazing happened. Many of them were actually aware, but trapped in bodies that could not respond. With the help of these interfaces, they could answer questions, express preferences, and even communicate with loved ones for the first time in many years. One patient, who had not responded to external stimuli for 7 years, used the interface to tell his family that he felt no pain and wanted to live. Another asked to play music from his favorite band, Tool. The consequences for mental health are also significant: depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. These states are associated with disruptions in brain activity patterns, which we can now observe and potentially correct in real time. Researchers from Johns Hopkins University use brain-computer interfaces to detect neural signs of depression before patients realize they are entering an episode. The system can stimulate certain areas of the brain to prevent the development of depression, akin to having a pacemaker for your mood. However, technology is advancing so rapidly that we are already moving beyond medical applications. At the University of California, researchers created a brain-to-brain interface that allowed 3 people to play Tetris using only their thoughts, with one seeing the game screen while the other 2 saw the falling blocks. They needed to align their thoughts to correctly rotate and place the figures. They achieved 85% success, confirming the possibility of creating a functional telepathic connection between human minds. Military applications evoke both excitement and concern. DARPA is developing neural interfaces that will allow soldiers to control swarms of drones with just their thoughts, or communicate silently on the battlefield. Pilots will be able to control aircraft at the speed of thought, making decisions faster than the enemy can react. But this raises terrifying questions about the future of war. If we can control machines with our minds, can these machines control us in return? Could the enemy hack a soldier's brain interface and make him turn against his own forces? Commercial applications are developing faster than anyone expected. Meta is creating non-invasive brain interfaces that can capture the words you're about to say before you say them. Imagine being able to send messages without touching your phone or translating your thoughts directly into any language. Apple has patents for brain interfaces that will allow you to control your entire digital life just by thinking. We are approaching a world where the boundary between mind and machine not only blurs, but completely disappears. The strangest discoveries come from research into anesthesia and psychedelics. When patients under anesthesia are monitored with advanced neural interfaces, one can observe the consciousness flickering like a candle flame. However, there is a strange moment. Sometimes consciousness remains in forms that we cannot recognize. Patients report vivid experiences at moments when their brains showed no activity in areas deemed necessary for consciousness. It seems consciousness can exist in ways current science cannot explain. Research on psychedelics unveils even more mysteries. When people take substances like psilocybin or DMT while connected to neural interfaces, their neural activity becomes more random and chaotic. However, they report experiences of deep meaning and clarity. The system responsible for our sense of self largely dissolves. People speak of experiencing consciousness without I, awareness without an observer. These states can show us what consciousness can be like when freed from the ego, from that narrative entity we usually take for ourselves. The philosophical implications are staggering. If consciousness arises from the interaction of the brain and body, and not just from the brain, then artificial intelligence may never become conscious in the way we do, no matter how intelligent it becomes. However, this also means that we can create new forms of consciousness by altering these interactions. Some researchers are already experimenting with artificial interoception, providing AI systems with modeled body signals to see if something resembling consciousness will emerge. We also discover that consciousness can be non-binary, existing on a spectrum with many degrees and types. Locked-in state patients demonstrate one type of consciousness, dreamers another, and meditators a third. Research using brain interfaces shows that even healthy people in a waking state can have different levels of consciousness in different areas of the brain simultaneously. Your visual cortex can be highly aware, while the motor cortex operates unconsciously, and all of this happens at the same moment. The most controversial studies concern the enhancement of normal human consciousness. Scientists from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology demonstrated that electrical stimulation of certain brain areas can temporarily increase intelligence by up to 20%, enhance creativity, or even induce mathematical abilities similar to those of the gifted. Professional gamers are already using transcranial direct current stimulation to improve their reactions. Students apply this method to enhance memory. We are approaching a world where cognitive enhancement through brain stimulation could become as commonplace as coffee. Some researchers go even further, suggesting that brain interfaces could allow us to experience entirely new forms of consciousness. Imagine being able to directly sense magnetic fields like birds do, or see infrared radiation like snakes. We could potentially upload skills directly into our brains like in The Matrix, or share memories and experiences between people. The boundary between self and other, between individual consciousness and collective awareness, could become voluntary rather than fixed. But perhaps the deepest discovery is that consciousness itself may be a fundamental characteristic of the universe rather than a byproduct of complex brains. This theory, called panpsychism, suggests that everything, from electrons to galaxies, has some form of experience or awareness. Brain interfaces can not only detect consciousness but tune into it like a radio picking up waves that have always been nearby. If this is true, then death may not be the end of consciousness, but simply a transformation into another form of awareness. Chapter 8. Psychology and Behavior. Mind Control and Memory. Your brain is deceiving you right now, not metaphorically, but literally creating false memories, altering your perception and rewriting your past experiences in real time. Scientists from McGill University have just published research showing that gaslighting, a technique of psychological manipulation, actually works because our brains are structured to be reprogrammed by social input. What we call reality is actually a consensual hallucination that can be hacked by anyone who understands the code. The discovery is based on studying people in controlled experiments with gaslighting, where researchers intentionally provided participants with false information about events they witnessed. Brain scans revealed something shocking. When someone you trust tells you that something happened differently than you remember, your brain doesn't just doubt your memory, it actually rewrites it. The hippocampus, where memories are stored, activates just like when forming new memories. Your brain literally edits your past to match what you are told. This is not a malfunction of human consciousness, but its peculiarity. Our brains have evolved to place greater importance on social cohesion rather than objective truth, as throughout much of human history, exile from the group meant death. Therefore, when a group claims that the berries are poisonous, even though you remember they are safe, your brain updates your memory according to the common opinion. In the year 2025, this mechanism is used by social media algorithms, political propaganda, and even marketing campaigns that can literally change your memories of the products you've used. But here's where it gets really strange. Researchers from the University of California, San Francisco, discovered that memories are subject to social manipulation and can be completely fabricated using a technique called optogenetics. By stimulating certain neurons with light, scientists can implant entirely false memories in mice. The mice genuinely remember events that never occurred, displaying the same fear, reactions, and behavioral patterns as if those events were real. Human trials are obviously unavailable for ethical reasons, but the mechanism seems to be identical in the human brain. Even more alarming is that a study published last week showed that high-calorie, unhealthy food can take over your memory systems in just 4 days. Scientists fed mice a diet similar to what many Americans eat, rich in processed fats and sugars, and observed their hippocampal neurons becoming hyperactive. The mice were losing the ability to form new memories correctly and showed signs of confusion about recent events. When researchers restored normal glucose levels, neurons calmed down, and memory functions were restored. Your diet literally edits your ability to accurately remember reality. The implications for diseases like Alzheimer's are revolutionary. Previously, we thought that memory loss in dementia was like deleting files from a hard drive, but new research suggests that memories still exist. We just can't access them. Scientists from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology successfully restored lost memories in mice without timers, using light to stimulate specific neural pathways. The memories did not disappear. They were just turned off. Human trials using focused ultrasound to achieve similar effects show promising early results. But memory is just the beginning of the psychological mysteries we unravel. Morning sickness, this terrible condition of pregnancy that affects 70% of pregnant women, turns out to be a complex evolutionary defense system. Researchers from the University of California, Los Angeles found that this is not random nausea, but a precisely tuned biological program that protects the developing fetus from potentially harmful substances. The timing, intensity, and specific triggers of morning sickness correspond to critical periods in fetal organ development. Women experiencing moderate morning sickness actually have lower rates of miscarriages and developmental defects. The mechanism behind this phenomenon is intriguing. When a woman becomes pregnant, her immune system starts to recognize foods that may contain pathogens or toxins dangerous for the developing child. As a result, nausea occurs related to these foods, and this effect can last throughout the pregnancy. The mechanism is so perfect that it can distinguish similar products based on slight chemical differences. This is an example of evolution shaping behavior through physical discomfort, using the mother's body as a chemical detection system for the child. Speaking about how evolution shapes behavior, scientists made a shocking discovery regarding autism. Instead of viewing autism as a disorder or mistake, it seems linked to the rapid development of unique areas of the human brain. The same genes that provide humans with our distinctive cognitive abilities, such as abstract thinking, complex language, and technological innovations, are also linked to autism. Essentially, autism may be the price we pay for the evolutionary achievements that made us human. Research on people with autism shows that they often have heightened abilities in pattern recognition, systematic thinking, and attention to detail. These qualities would have been incredibly useful in early human societies for tasks such as tracking animals, identifying edible plants, or making tools. The prevalence of autism has remained stable throughout human history, indicating that it is not a disease to be eradicated, but a variation that benefits the entire species. Silicon Valley is experiencing an unusually high level of autism, likely not a coincidence, as these cognitive traits are highly valued here, reflecting a significant shift in how our brains perceive social information. A large-scale study using brain imaging showed that loneliness literally changes the structure of your brain. Lonely people have excellent patterns of white matter, neural highways connecting areas of the brain, and their default network, active when we are not focused on the outside world, is hyperactive. Moreover, they exhibit increased activity in areas related to vigilance and threat detection. Loneliness not only induces negative feelings, but fundamentally restructures your brain for survival in isolation. However, the most troubling discoveries concern free will, or rather, its absence. Neurobiologists can now predict with 80% accuracy whether you will raise your right or left hand 10 seconds before you think you've made that decision. The conscious experience of choice seems to be a post-factum narrative that your brain creates to explain decisions already made by unconscious processes. Your brain makes a decision, then you become aware of it, and then you create a story about why you made that choice. Free will may turn out to be the greatest illusion. This has profound implications for criminal justice, mental health treatment, and personal responsibility. If our decisions are made unconsciously before we realize them, Can we truly be held responsible for our actions? Some courts have begun to consider neuroscientific evidence in their verdicts, understanding that brain injuries or anomalies can exclude what we typically regard as free choice. We are approaching a future where brain scan results may be more important than witness testimonies in determining guilt or innocence. Manipulation of behavior through external signals reaches a frightening level of complexity. Casinos have long known that certain sounds, lights, and patterns can trigger compulsive gambling, but new studies show how precisely behavior can be controlled. Analyzing millions of online behavior data, artificial intelligence systems can now predict with 93% accuracy whether someone will make a purchase, click a link, or even fall into depression. We are not just tracked online, we are programmed. The most frightening thing about this is how subtle manipulation can be. Researchers found that displaying certain colors for just 30 milliseconds, too quick for awareness, can change mood and decision-making for hours. Music in stores is carefully selected to alter your walking speed and increase the likelihood of a purchase. Even the temperature and humidity in retail spaces are optimized to create a shopping mood. Your environment constantly programs your behavior at a level inaccessible to awareness. But there is hope. Understanding these mechanisms allows us to resist them. Meditation, as studies have shown, strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain associated with conscious control and decision-making. People who meditate regularly are less susceptible to manipulation and show greater activity in areas of the brain associated with free will, if it even exists. Knowledge itself becomes a form of protection. As soon as you realize how your brain is being hacked, you can start building a defense. Chapter 8. Psychology and Behavior, Mind Control, and the Mysteries of Memory. Your brain is lying to you now, not in some metaphorical sense, but literally creating false memories, distorting your perception, and rewriting your past experiences in real time. Scientists from McGill University have just published a study showing that gaslighting, a technique of psychological manipulation, actually works because our brains are designed to be reprogrammed through social influences. What we call reality is actually a shared hallucination that can be hacked by anyone who understands the code. The discovery was made during studies of people in controlled gaslighting experiments, where researchers intentionally provided participants with false information about events they observed. Brain scans revealed something shocking. When someone you trust tells you that an event happened differently than you remember, your brain doesn't just doubt your memory, it actually rewrites it. The hippocampus, where memories are stored, shows the same patterns of activity as when forming new memories. Your brain literally edits your past to match what you are told. This is not a mistake of human consciousness, but its peculiarity. Our brains have evolved to prioritize social unity over objective truth, because for most of human history, being excluded from the group meant death. Therefore, when a group claims that the bear is poisonous, even though you remember it being safe, your brain updates your memory to align with the consensus. In the year 2025, this mechanism is used by social media algorithms, political propaganda, and even marketing campaigns that can literally change your memories of the products you've used. But here is where it gets really strange. Researchers from the University of California, San Francisco, discovered that memories are not only subject to social manipulation, but can be entirely fabricated using a technique called optogenetics. By stimulating certain neurons with light, scientists can implant entirely false memories in mice. The mice sincerely remember events that never occurred, exhibiting the same fear and behavioral reactions as if those events were real. Trials on humans are obviously unavailable for ethical reasons, but the mechanism seems identical in the human brain. Even more alarming, a study published last week showed that high-calorie junk food can undermine your memory in just 4 days. Scientists fed mice a diet similar to that of many Americans, high in fats and sugars, and observed their hippocampal neurons becoming hyperactive. Mice were losing the ability to form new memories correctly and showed signs of confusion about recent events. When researchers restored normal glucose levels, the neurons calmed down and memory function returned. Your diet literally edits your ability to accurately remember reality. The implications for diseases like Alzheimer's are revolutionary. Previously, we thought that memory loss and dementia was like deleting files from a hard drive, but new research shows that memories still exist. We just can't access them. Scientists from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology successfully restored lost memories in mice without timers, using light to stimulate specific neural pathways. The memories were not gone. they were simply turned off. Experiments on humans using focused ultrasound to achieve similar effects show promising early results. But memory is just the beginning of the psychological mysteries we uncover. Morning sickness, this terrible condition of pregnancy that affects 70% of pregnant women, turns out to be a complex evolutionary defense system. Researchers from the University of California, Los Angeles discovered that this is not random nausea, but a precisely calibrated biological program that protects the developing fetus from potentially harmful food. The timing, intensity, and specific triggers of morning sickness correspond to critical periods of organ development in the fetus. Women experiencing moderate morning nausea actually have lower rates of miscarriages and birth defects. The mechanism of this phenomenon is quite interesting. When a woman becomes pregnant, her immune system starts identifying foods that may contain pathogens or toxins harmful to the developing baby. As a result, nausea specific to these foods occurs, and this process can last throughout the pregnancy. This system is so complex that it can distinguish similar products by slight chemical differences. This behavior, programmed by evolution, manifests through physical discomfort, using the mother's body as a chemical detector for the child. Speaking about evolution and its influence on behavior, researchers made a shocking discovery about autism. Instead of viewing it as a disorder or mistake, autism seems to be linked to the rapid evolution of unique areas of the human brain. The same genes that gifted humans our distinctive cognitive abilities, our capacity for abstract thinking, complex language, and technological innovations are also linked to autism. Essentially, autism may be the price we pay for the evolutionary advancements that made us human. Research on autistic individuals shows that they often have developed abilities in pattern recognition, systematic thinking, and attention to detail. These qualities would have been incredibly valuable in early human societies for tasks such as tracking animals, identifying edible plants, or making tools. The prevalence of autism has remained stable throughout human history, indicating that it is not a disease to be eradicated, but a variation that provides advantages to the species. Silicon Valley exhibits an unusually high level of autism, likely not a coincidence, as cognitive differences are particularly valued there. Research shows that the process by which our brain processes social information also undergoes significant changes. A large-scale study using neuroimaging showed that loneliness literally alters the structure of the brain. Lonely individuals exhibit differences in the patterns of white matter that connect brain regions. Their state of rest network, a system active when we are not focused on the external world, is hyperactive. Increased activity is also recorded in areas related to vigilance and threat detection. Loneliness not only evokes negative feelings, but also radically reprograms the brain for survival in isolation. However, the most alarming discoveries concern free will, or rather, its absence. Neurobiologists can now predict with 80% accuracy whether you will choose to raise your right or left hand 10 seconds before you decide to do so. Conscious experience of choice seems to be an epilogue your brain creates to explain decisions already made by unconscious processes. First, your brain makes a decision, then you become aware of it, and then you create a narrative about why you decided that way. Free will may turn out to be the highest illusion. This has serious consequences for criminal justice, psychiatric treatment, and personal responsibility. If our decisions are formed unconsciously before we become aware of them, can we truly be held accountable for our actions? Some courts are already considering neuroscientific evidence in their verdicts, acknowledging that brain injuries or anomalies can deprive a person of the freedom of choice we usually consider normal. We are approaching a future where brain scan results may become more important than witness testimonies in determining guilt or innocence. Manipulating behavior through environmental cues reaches a frightening level of complexity. Casinos have long known that certain sounds, lights, and patterns can provoke compulsive gambling, but new research shows how precisely behavior can be controlled. Analyzing millions of data on internet behavior, artificial intelligence systems can now predict with 93% accuracy whether someone will make a purchase, click a link, or even fall into depression. We are not just tracked online, we are programmed. The scariest thing is how subtle manipulation can be. Researchers found that showing certain colors for just 30 milliseconds, too quick for awareness, can alter a person's mood and decision-making for hours. The music playing in stores is carefully selected to alter your walking speed and increase the likelihood of a purchase. Even the temperature and humidity in retail spaces are optimized to create a shopping mood. Your environment constantly programs your behavior below the level of awareness. but there is hope. Understanding these mechanisms gives us the power to resist them. Meditation, as studies have shown, strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for conscious control and decision-making. People who meditate regularly are less susceptible to manipulation and show greater activity in areas of the brain related to free will, if it exists. Knowledge itself becomes a form of protection. As soon as you understand how your brain is being hacked, you can begin to build defenses. Chapter 8. Psychology and Behavior. Control over the mind and memory. Your brain is deceiving you right now, not in some metaphorical sense, but literally creating false memories, altering your perception, and rewriting your past experiences in real time. Researchers from McGill University recently published a study showing that gaslighting, a psychological manipulation, actually works because our brains are structured to be reprogrammed by social factors. What we call reality is actually a consensual hallucination that can be hacked by anyone who understands the code. The discovery was made during the study of people in controlled experiments on gaslighting, where researchers intentionally provided participants with false information about the events they observed. Brain scanning revealed something shocking. When someone you trust tells you that what happened differs from your memories, your brain doesn't just start to doubt your memory, it actually rewrites it. The hippocampus, where memories are stored, is activated just like when forming new memories. Your brain literally edits your past to fit what you are told. This is not a glitch in human consciousness, but its peculiarity. Our brains have evolved to place more importance on social cohesion than on objective truth, because for most of human history, being cast out from the group meant death. Therefore, when a group claims that a bear is poisonous, even if you remember it was safe, your brain updates your memory to align with the consensus. In the year 2025, this mechanism is used by social media algorithms, political propaganda, and even marketing campaigns that can literally alter your memories of the products you have used. But here is where it gets really strange. Researchers from the University of California, San Francisco, discovered that memories are not only subject to social manipulation, but can be completely fabricated using a technique called optogenetics. By stimulating certain neurons with light, scientists can implant entirely false memories in mice. The mice genuinely remember events that never occurred, displaying the same fear reactions and behavioral patterns as if those events were real. Experiments on people are obviously impossible for ethical reasons, but the mechanism seems identical in the human brain. Even more alarming is that a study published last week showed that high-fat junk food can hijack your memory systems in just 4 days. Scientists fed mice diets similar to what many Americans eat daily, high in processed fats and sugars, and observed their neurons in the hippocampus becoming hyperactive. Mice lost the ability to properly form new memories and showed signs of confusion regarding recent events. When researchers restored normal glucose levels, the neurons calmed down and memory function was restored. Your diet essentially edits your ability to accurately remember reality. The implications for diseases like Alzheimer's are revolutionary. Previously, we thought that memory loss and dementia was like deleting files from a hard drive. But new research suggests that memories still exist. We just cannot access them. Scientists from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology successfully restored lost memories in mice with Alzheimer's disease by using light to stimulate specific neural pathways. The memories did not disappear. They were simply turned off. Experiments with people using focused ultrasound to achieve similar effects show promising early results. But memory is just the beginning of the psychological mysteries we uncover. Morning sickness, this terrible condition of pregnancy affecting 70% of pregnant women, turns out to be a complex evolutionary defense system. Researchers from the University of California, Los Angeles discovered that this is not random nausea, but a finely tuned biological program that protects the developing fetus from potentially harmful food. Time, intensity, and specific triggers of morning sickness are closely linked to critical periods of fetal organ development. Women experiencing moderate morning sickness actually have lower rates of miscarriages and developmental defects. The mechanism of this process is quite fascinating. When a woman becomes pregnant, her immune system begins to recognize foods that may contain pathogens or toxins dangerous for the developing child, causing nausea specifically towards those foods, creating an aversion that can last throughout the pregnancy. This is such a complex process that it can distinguish similar products based on minor chemical differences. This behavior, shaped by evolution, uses the physical discomfort of the mother as a chemical detection system for the child. Speaking about how evolution shapes behavior, researchers made a shocking discovery about autism. Instead of viewing it as a disorder or mistake, autism appears to be linked to the rapid evolution of unique human brain areas. The same genes that provide humans with our distinctive cognitive abilities, such as the capacity for abstract thinking, complex language, and technological innovations, are also linked to autism. Essentially, autism may be the price we pay for the evolutionary advancements that made us human. Research on autistics shows that they often possess enhanced abilities in pattern recognition, systematic thinking, and attention to detail. These traits would have been incredibly valuable in early human societies for tasks such as tracking animals, identifying edible plants, or creating tools. The prevalence of autism has remained stable throughout human history, indicating that it is not a disease to be eradicated, but a variation that provides advantages to the entire species. Silicon Valley sees an unusually high level of autism, likely not a coincidence, as cognitive differences are highly valued there. The way our brains process social information is undergoing a complete rethinking. A huge study using brain imaging showed that loneliness literally alters the structure of your brain. Lonely people demonstrate various patterns of white substance, neural pathways connecting areas of the brain, and their default mode network, a system that is active when we are not focused on the external world, is hyperactive. They also exhibit increased activity in areas related to vigilance and threat detection. Loneliness is not just unpleasant, it fundamentally restructures your brain for survival in isolation. However, the most troubling discoveries concern free will, or rather its absence. Neurobiologists can currently predict with 80% accuracy whether you will raise your right or left hand 10 seconds before you think you've made the decision. The realization of choice seems to be a post-factum narrative construct that your brain creates to explain decisions that have already been made by unconscious processes. Your brain makes a decision. Then you become aware of that decision and ultimately create a story about why you made that decision. Free will may turn out to be the greatest illusion. This has profound implications for criminal justice, mental health treatment, and personal responsibility. If our decisions are made unconsciously before we realize them, can we truly be held responsible for our actions? Some courts are beginning to consider neuroscientific evidence when delivering verdicts, realizing that brain injuries or anomalies may exclude what we usually consider free choice. We are approaching a future where brain scanning may become more important than witness testimony in determining guilt or innocence. Manipulating behavior through external cues reaches frightening levels of complexity. Casinos have long known that certain sounds, lights, and patterns can provoke compulsive gambling behavior, but new research shows how precisely behavior can be controlled. Analyzing millions of data on online behavior, artificial intelligence systems can predict with 93% accuracy whether someone will make a purchase, click a link, or even fall into depression. We are not just tracked online, we are programmed. The most frightening thing is the subtlety of manipulation. Researchers found that showing certain colors for just 30 milliseconds, too fast for awareness, can change mood and decision-making for several hours. The music playing in stores is carefully selected to alter your walking pace and increase the likelihood of a purchase. Even the temperature and humidity in retail spaces are optimized to set you in a shopping mood. Your environment constantly programs your behavior below the threshold of awareness. But there is hope. Understanding these mechanisms gives us the power to resist them. Meditation, as shown, strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain associated with conscious control and decision-making. People who meditate regularly are less susceptible to manipulation and show greater activity in areas of the brain associated with free will, if it exists at all. Knowledge itself becomes a form of protection. As soon as you understand how your brain can be manipulated, you can start building defenses. While we spend these last moments together, think about what we witnessed tonight. An interstellar visitor hiding behind our sun, which could change our understanding of our place in the cosmos. 6,000 worlds orbiting distant stars, each a mystery waiting to be solved. The promise of limitless clean energy from nuclear fusion is finally within reach. The possibility of editing one's genetic code to reverse aging. Machines that can read our thoughts and may soon share our consciousness. A troubling awareness that our memories can be rewritten, our behavior programmed, and our reality manipulated, with inexplicable phenomena in our sky that governments can no longer ignore, and a climate system pushed to limits we were unaware of. These are not separate stories, but chapters in a single cosmic narrative, a tale of a being on the brink of transformation. We are at the threshold between who we were and who we can become. The decisions we make in the coming years about how to use CRISPR, how to integrate with artificial intelligence, how to respond to climate change, whether we will strive for the stars or retreat within ourselves, these decisions will resonate for centuries, perhaps millennia. Think about where you listen to this tonight. Perhaps in bed, allowing these mysteries to envelop you as you drift into sleep. Maybe on a long journey, watching the stars spin above you, reflecting on our place among them, or simply going about daily tasks. But now realizing that we live in the most amazing time in human history, where the impossible becomes possible so regularly that we barely have time to marvel at it. The universe was patient with us, holding its secrets for billions of years. But now, in this brief cosmic moment we call the 21st century, these secrets are unfolding with astonishing speed. We are the generation that will witness first contact or confirm that we are alone. We will cure aging or accept mortality. We will save our planet or watch it become unrecognizable. We will unite with our machines or preserve our biological heritage. These are not distant possibilities for future generations. They are choices we make right now. Consciousness itself becomes something we can measure, manipulate, and perhaps even create. We face the deepest question: what does it mean to be conscious in a universe that may be conscious? Each discovery we discuss tonight brings us closer to this ultimate mystery. Are we the universe knowing itself? Are we alone in this understanding? And if not, what responsibilities come with this knowledge? Thank you for joining me on this journey through the boundaries of human understanding. If these discoveries have sparked your interest, awakened your imagination, or even shaken your comfortable views of reality, please consider sharing this with someone who might appreciate the opportunity to ponder these profound questions. Share this material if you want to see more in-depth research on science changing our world, and stay connected to not miss the next revelation, as the speed at which everything is moving means tomorrow's discovery could make everything we've discussed today obsolete. Remember, everything discussed today represents our current best understanding based on available data and peer-reviewed studies. Science is a process of continuous discovery and revision. What seems certain today may be disproven tomorrow by new data. This is not the weakness of science, but its greatest strength. Stay curious, maintain skepticism, and never stop asking questions.